Hi, everybody. I am happy to be talking with you today about Jeanette Winterson's Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit. This is part of our Queer Forums unit. We just completed uh, Janet Mock's Redefining Realness, and we watched the documentary Disclosure. So we've been thinking about the way that the memoir form and popular media representations of transness, such as that which is um, taken apart in Disclosure, how these various forms are significant for the forging of trans identity and for educating people about transness. We're going to shift over from memoir to a novel that certainly has a memoir feel to it, and that is Winterson's novel, which is about a young white working class British girl who comes of age as a lesbian, and it's about her relationship with her deeply religious mother. And what I want to talk about today is how the evangelicalism that her mother espouses and that she inculcates Jeanette with is both a barrier to Jeanette's coming of age and coming out, um, as much as it is what makes her queer. So to clarify that, the evangelicalism is what forges her queerness to a certain extent, and I want to talk about that a little bit today. You were assigned to read through page 49 for today's class, and so Jeanette, we learn in these opening pages, is a foundling or an orphan. And her mother is a working class, is a working poor member of an all-encompassing evangelical religion in England. She adopts Jeanette and raises her in this in the fold, as it were, right? And we are kind of getting insight into Jeanette's early years in these opening pages. But Jeanette, we learn from the very beginning, is a curious child, and her storytelling is highlighted on page 13 in a passage where she is taking the felt board and rewriting biblical passages. So the top of 13, Daniel, who's the religious instructor and is trying to help Jeanette, says to her that the scene that she created with Daniel isn't correct. He says, but that's not right. Don't you know that Daniel escaped? In your picture, the lions are swallowing him. I'm sorry, I replied, putting on my best blessed face. I wanted to do Jonah and the whale, but they don't do whales in fuzzy felt. I'm pretending those lions are whales. You said it was Daniel. He was suspicious. I got mixed up. He smiled. Let's put it right, shall we? So even in these early pages, we see Jeanette's rewriting of the Bible to suit her sort of creative imaginings of what it was. And so in this landscape, for Jeanette, storytelling is flexible, it's malleable, it can be shaped and harnessed to different ends. And her relationship with her mother is also highlighted. Her mother at times seems rather neglectful of Jeanette's, like actual physical well-being and her education, for example. On page 17, she receives a letter uh, in which it is revealed that she says, I have to send you to school. Um, and Jeanette is excited because she's going to what her mom refers to as the breeding ground. So unless Jeanette's mother sends her to school, she's going to be imprisoned, right? And so Jeanette gets kind of a late start at school because of her mother's obsession with religion at the expense of her education. And then, also kind of in the same vein, on page 26 is where Mrs. Jewsbury calls attention to Jeanette's temporary deafness, which is totally overlooked by her mother. So when Miss Jewsbury realizes what's going on with Jeanette, she says on page 26 to Jeanette's mother, this child's not full of the spirit, she screamed, she's deaf. So Jeanette's mother was under the assumption that her deafness was some kind of miracle or sign. And Mrs. Jewsbury is like, actually, your daughter needs, medical attention. So Jeanette is then taken to the doctor where they're able to do tests and figure out what's going on with her, and she regains her hearing. But we see from this how Jeanette's mother really has a kind of narrow idea about what constitutes her daughter's well-being, and it's all based on spirituality, or her version of spirituality. So then on page 29, right, we get Elsie Norris is another figure who comes into Jeanette's life while she's actually in the hospital. And this is sort of their budding relationship is sort of stands in for her mother's absence. So on page 29, she talks about the namesake title of the novel, Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, right? That while she was in the hospital, her mother was coming to see her, and she had her friendship with Elsie, who was also in the hospital. But the bottom of 29, she writes, my mother came to see me quite a lot in the end, but it was the busy season at church. They were planning the Christmas campaign. When she couldn't come herself, she sent my father, usually with a letter and a couple of oranges. The only fruit, she always said. Fruit salad, fruit pie, fruit for fools, fruited punch, demon fruit, passion fruit, rotten fruit, fruit on Sunday. Oranges are the only fruit. I filled my little basket with peel, and the nurses emptied it with an ill grace. Elsie Norris and me ate an orange every day, half each. Elsie had no teeth, so she sucked and champed. I dropped my pieces like oysters far back into the throat. People used to watch us, but we didn't mind. So this passage, I think, is very revealing because it allows us to see Jeanette's relationship with Elsie, the way that they eat these oranges in an atypical manner and draw the attention of other people who are in the hospital, right? So two sort of atypical people drawing attention, and at the same time, this passage draws attention to Jeanette's mother's absence, right? She can't come see her because she's attending to church matters. So, and then on 32, just a few pages later, Elsie says to Jeanette, there's this world, she banged the wall graphically, and there's this world, she thumped her chest. If you want to make sense of either, you have to take notice of both. So Jeanette is learning from Elsie the things that she might not be learning from her mother about interiority and exteriority and how to make sense of the world as a child, right? Which is to pay attention to one's emotions and feelings while also orienting oneself in the physical world. So these lessons are, again, happening in the absence of her mother. And significantly, these lessons are coming from other women, right? And so from the beginning, the relationship between women is what is prioritized here. Also, I just wanted to point out that this novel is really funny at times, and I hope that that comes through for you. But one example of this is on page 39, where they do the cross stitch at school, and Jeanette does hers on her cross stitch does the summer is ended and we are not yet saved, and gives a little graphic of like on the cross stitch, does a little representation of like burning figures, right, in the cross stitch. And this draws the attention of her classmates, and this sort of over the top representation of the damned and the spiritually damned is what kind of marks Jeanette as queer or different at school. And so, again, this is part of how I want to think about how religion helps to forge Jeanette's, how Jeanette is received by the world around her, but also how it forges her sexuality. And so religion is deeply embedded in this novel. You'll notice also that the chapter titles have biblical book names like Genesis, Exodus, and so forth. And so we might want to think about how this novel is a kind of rewriting of, of the Bible and of our religious understandings of sexuality. So that's all I have for you for today. I'm going to have you do some collaborative annotation work on the assigned pages for today's reading. Do keep up with the reading for Thursday as well. Reminder that there's no class, and I will see you soon. Take care.